What if the person you trust with your children knows a secret that could destroy your entire world? What if the baby monitor in your child's room has become a window into truths you never wanted to face? Tonight, I'm going to share a true story that will challenge everything you think you know about privacy, privilege, and the moral burdens we place on domestic workers. This isn't just another nanny drama. This is a powerful account of how one woman's accidental discovery forced an entire family to choose between their perfect lies and their imperfect truth. You'll meet Isabella, the nanny who saw everything but was seen by no one. You'll meet the Carter family, beautiful, successful, and living a lie that was slowly poisoning them from the inside out. And you'll witness the moment when a baby monitor became the unlikely instrument of truth, forcing everyone to confront the secrets they were keeping and the prices they were paying to maintain them. If you've ever wondered about the invisible people in your life, questioned the cost of perfection, or faced an impossible moral choice, prepare to see your own relationships in a new light. This story will show you how sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places, and how the truth we fear most might be the very thing that sets us free. You know, there's a particular kind of loneliness that comes from being both everywhere and nowhere at once, from occupying the intimate spaces of a family's life while remaining fundamentally separate from it. For Isabella, a 28-year-old nanny from Guatemala, this paradox defined her existence in the wealthy Carter household. She spent more waking hours with little Chloe than the child's own parents did, yet she remained as invisible as the air they breathed. The financial struggle that had driven her to leave her own daughter back home was a constant, quiet ache, a sacrifice she made every day so that someone else's child could have the life she couldn't provide her own. Her dignity became wrapped up in being the perfect, silent helper, observant but never intrusive, present but never noticed. Now, let me ask you something. When was the last time you thought about the people who work in your home, who care for your children, who see the unguarded moments of your life? We often treat domestic workers as appliances that happen to be human-shaped, expecting them to perform emotional labor while remaining emotionally detached themselves. This week, try what I call conscious visibility. Acknowledge the full humanity of the people who serve you. Learn one real thing about their lives outside your home, one dream they harbor, one struggle they face. You'll discover that this simple act of kindness transforms not only their experience, but your own capacity for genuine connection. The Carters lived in a beautiful prison of their own making, a stunning 5-bedroom home where every surface gleamed, but where genuine connection had died years earlier. Mr. Carter was a corporate lawyer who measured his worth in billable hours, while Mrs. Carter curated their perfect family image on social media with the precision of a museum curator. Isabella watched them perform family life like actors in a play, their interactions scripted and hollow. The family secret wasn't some dramatic scandal. It was the quiet, soul-crushing reality that they'd built a beautiful life that felt completely empty, and the only person who noticed was the woman they paid to be there. Everything changed on a Tuesday evening when Isabella was putting Chloe to bed. The baby monitor, a sophisticated device that recorded everything, picked up a conversation from the master bedroom that was never meant for her ears. At first, it was just the usual strained politeness, but then the tone shifted, and what she heard next would freeze the blood in her veins. It wasn't about infidelity or financial ruin. It was something far more dangerous, a secret that could literally destroy multiple lives if it came out. And in that moment, holding a sleeping child who trusted her completely, Isabella realized she was no longer just the nanny. She'd become the accidental keeper of a truth that could shatter everything. You know how they say ignorance is bliss? Well, Isabella was about to discover that knowledge can be the heaviest burden you'll ever carry. The secret she'd accidentally overheard wasn't just some private marital drama. It was a ticking time bomb that could destroy the Carter family's carefully constructed world and potentially put people in danger. The financial struggle that usually dominated her thoughts suddenly seemed trivial compared to the moral earthquake she was now navigating. She found herself watching the Carters differently, seeing the cracks in their perfect facade, understanding the desperate performance they maintained every day. Her loneliness in their home became amplified. She was now living with people whose deepest truth she knew, while they continued to treat her as part of the furniture. Let me ask you something. What would you do if you discovered a dangerous secret about someone you work for? We all like to think we do the right thing, but the right thing is rarely clear when real lives are at stake. This month, try ethical scenario planning. Consider what you would do in various moral dilemmas before you face them. How would you handle discovering illegal activity at work? What would you do if you learned a friend's partner was cheating? Thinking through these scenarios in advance builds what I call moral muscle memory, so you're not making earth-shattering decisions in a panic. Isabella's dilemma was compounded by her own vulnerable position. As an immigrant domestic worker, her entire livelihood depended on the Carters' goodwill. Reporting what she knew could mean losing her job, her visa status, and her ability to support her daughter back home. Yet staying silent felt like a betrayal of everything she believed about human decency. The unexpected help she desperately needed wasn't financial or legal. It was moral guidance, the kind that doesn't come with easy answers. She found herself studying Mrs. Carter's face during their morning briefings, wondering if the woman had any idea what her husband was involved in, if she was a victim or a participant in the deception. The baby monitor became both her curse and her conscience. Every time she heard it crackle to life, her heart would pound, terrified of hearing more, but unable to look away from the truth. She started keeping a secret journal, not because she planned to use it, but because the act of writing helped her think through the impossible position she found herself in. The storytelling she practiced in those pages wasn't for anyone else. It was her way of maintaining her dignity and sanity in a situation that felt increasingly insane. And as the days turned into weeks, she realized that the secret wasn't just a static thing she knew. It was evolving, growing more dangerous, and pulling her deeper into a world she never asked to enter. You know, there comes a moment in every moral crisis when abstract principles collide with messy reality. And for Isabella, that moment arrived with a phone call she overheard while Chloe napped. The conversation she captured on the baby monitor was no longer about covering up a past mistake. It had escalated into an active conspiracy that put innocent people at risk. The family secret had grown tentacles, and Isabella realized that her silence wasn't just protecting the Carters anymore. It was potentially enabling harm to others. The financial struggle that had once seemed like her biggest problem now felt like a luxurious concern compared to the ethical nightmare she was living. Now, here's a practical thought for you. When was the last time you faced a decision where doing the right thing came with significant personal cost? We often judge people for their choices in impossible situations without acknowledging the real prices they pay. This week, try cost of integrity mapping. Identify one principle you hold dear and honestly assess what it would cost you to uphold it in various scenarios. You might discover that your values have price tags you've never acknowledged, and that awareness makes you both more compassionate toward others and more intentional in your own choices. Isabella's breaking point came when she realized that little Chloe was being used as unwitting camouflage for her parents' activities. The playdates, the preschool events, the family outings, all were carefully staged to maintain an image of normalcy, while darker things unfolded behind the scenes. The act of kindness she'd always shown this child now felt inadequate. True protection would require action that could destroy Chloe's family. Isabella found herself in the impossible position of having to choose between protecting a child's present stability and preventing future harm that would inevitably touch that same child's life. What happened next would test every boundary Isabella had ever maintained. She made a decision that crossed from employee to moral agent. She began discreetly documenting everything, not knowing if she would ever use the information, but understanding that the truth deserved preservation. The second chance she was contemplating wasn't for herself, but for the Carters, a chance to come clean before their deception consumed them entirely. And as she looked at Chloe's trusting face during their morning cuddle, she understood that sometimes love requires actions that look nothing like love in the moment, and that the most powerful unexpected help we can offer someone might be the truth they're desperately hiding from. You know how they say the truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable? Well, Isabella was about to discover that sometimes the truth makes everyone miserable before any freedom is possible. The confrontation happened not in some dramatic, planned moment, but organically, when Mrs. Carter came home early from a charity event and found Isabella crying quietly in the kitchen. The nanny, who never showed emotion, who maintained perfect professional composure through toddler tantrums and household crises, had finally reached her breaking point. The loneliness of carrying her terrible knowledge had become too heavy, and the dam broke in the one place she was supposed to be strongest. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you had to have a conversation you desperately wanted to avoid? The kind that makes your palms sweat and your heart race just thinking about it? Most of us will do almost anything to avoid confrontation. But what if the avoidance causes more damage than the confrontation itself? This month, practice courageous conversation scripting. Write out difficult conversations you need to have, focusing on speaking truth with compassion rather than avoiding conflict. You'll find that the anticipation is usually worse than the reality, and that most people respect honesty more than we give them credit for. What unfolded in the Carter kitchen was nothing either woman could have predicted. Through tears, Isabella confessed what she knew, not as an accusation, but as a burden she could no longer carry alone. Mrs. Carter's reaction wasn't anger or denial. It was something far more complex: relief. The family secret she'd been keeping had been slowly poisoning her, and having it exposed felt like lancing a wound. The reconciliation that began in that moment wasn't instant or easy, but it was real. Two women from completely different worlds, bound together by a truth that affected them both profoundly. As the conversation deepened, a more complicated picture emerged. Mrs. Carter wasn't the villain Isabella had imagined. She was a trapped woman trying to protect her child from consequences she didn't fully understand herself. The financial struggle Isabella had assumed was non-existent was actually very real, just hidden beneath layers of privilege and debt. The lost and found nature of their conversation, lost assumptions, found understanding, created a fragile bridge between employer and employee. And as they talked through the night, Isabella realized that the secret she'd uncovered was just the surface layer of a much deeper, more human story of fear, love, and the desperate choices people make when they feel trapped. You know, sometimes the people we expect to be on opposite sides of a conflict become our most unexpected allies. And for Isabella and Mrs. Carter, their kitchen confrontation forged a bond that defied every social and economic boundary. What began as an employer-employee relationship transformed into something resembling sisters navigating a crisis together. The community they built in those tense weeks was small, just two women and a child, but it was more real than any of the lavish social circles Mrs. Carter normally inhabited. Together, they began untangling the web of deception Mr. Carter had woven, discovering that the family secret was even more complicated than either had imagined. Now, here's something you can apply to your own life. When was the last time you formed an alliance with someone completely different from you to solve a common problem? We often cluster with people who share our backgrounds and beliefs, but the most powerful solutions often emerge from diverse perspectives. This week, try difference-seeking collaboration. Intentionally partner with someone from a different department, background, or perspective to tackle a challenge. You'll be amazed at how the friction between different worldviews can spark innovation you'd never achieve alone. Their investigation revealed that Mr. Carter wasn't the master villain Isabella had assumed, but a man trapped in a situation that had spiraled beyond his control. The financial struggle he'd been hiding was connected to a business partner's betrayal, and his attempts to fix things had only dug the hole deeper. The second chance Isabella and Mrs. Carter were crafting wasn't about avoiding consequences, but about facing them with integrity and minimizing the collateral damage to innocent people, especially Chloe. Their act of kindness toward each other created a safe space where truth could finally breathe after years of suffocation. The most transformative moment came when they decided to bring Mr. Carter into their conspiracy of truth. The confrontation was terrifying, but what emerged was a man broken by his own choices and ready for redemption. The reconciliation that followed was messy, raw, and real. Tears, anger, fear, but ultimately, a shared commitment to making things right. Isabella, who had started as the invisible observer, now found herself at the center of a family's redemption story, her dignity and moral clarity becoming the compass they all followed. And as they worked together to untangle the mess, she understood that sometimes saving a family doesn't mean preserving its perfect image, but helping it find its way back to truth, no matter how painful the journey. You know, the true test of any transformation isn't what happens in the crisis, but what remains when the dust settles. For the Carter household, the after looked nothing like the before, and that was ultimately their salvation. Mr. Carter came clean about everything, facing professional consequences but reclaiming his soul in the process. Mrs. Carter stepped out from behind her perfect social media persona and discovered the freedom of authenticity. And Isabella found that her role had evolved from nanny to something far more profound, a trusted advisor, a moral anchor, a chosen family member. The financial struggle that had once defined her relationship with the Carters was replaced by mutual respect and genuine care. Let me ask you something. What relationship in your life has transformed in ways you never could have predicted? We often put people in boxes based on their roles, employee, boss, neighbor, relative, and miss the beautiful complexity that emerges when we allow those boundaries to become more fluid. This month, try relationship reinvention. Identify one relationship that feels stuck in predefined roles and consciously look for opportunities to connect beyond those limitations. You might discover depths in people you've been taking for granted. The most beautiful outcome was what happened to little Chloe. Instead of growing up in a house of carefully maintained lies, she now experienced something far more valuable. Parents who were imperfect but present, who modeled accountability and resilience. The family secret that could have destroyed her childhood instead became the foundation for a more honest family culture. Isabella's sacrifice in staying through the crisis, turning down better-paying jobs to see things through, was repaid not in money, but in the profound satisfaction of having helped a child grow up in truth rather than deception. A year later, the Carter household was unrecognizable from its former self. The same beautiful house now contained a genuinely happy family. Mr. Carter had started a new business built on transparency. Mrs. Carter had become an advocate for domestic workers' rights. And Isabella had been promoted to household manager with a salary that finally reflected her worth. The community they'd built extended beyond their walls, as they worked together to help other families facing similar crises. And as Isabella looked at the family she'd helped save, the family that had also saved her from her own loneliness, she understood that the most powerful storytelling isn't about dramatic revelations, but about the quiet, daily choice to live in truth, and that sometimes the person we pay the least attention to holds the key to our greatest healing. So let me ask you this. Who are the invisible people in your life who see more than you realize? What truths are you hiding that might be costing you more than you're saving? Here's the powerful lesson Isabella's story teaches us. The financial struggle that makes us feel vulnerable often reveals who we truly are when everything else is stripped away. The dignity we afford others, regardless of their position, often returns to us when we need it most. Now I want you to consider, what secret are you carrying that's becoming too heavy? What relationship in your life needs the healing power of truth? What baby monitor moments have you been avoiding that might actually contain the key to your freedom? If this story inspired you to look at the domestic workers in your life with new respect, if you believe that truth and redemption are possible even in the most broken situations, then do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Why? Because every week we share true stories like this one that prove moral courage can change everything, and that sometimes the person we overlook holds the wisdom we desperately need. Your journey toward living in greater truth starts with one click, and I'll be right here to guide you every step of the way.